do as NXT champion, but we don't know what they can do as Divas champions in the way of Sasha Banks's or Becky Lynch's, because they've never been Divas champions. So the role for Charlotte in this match, if she doesn't retain the title, could be to put over people like Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch for the future, because like I've said many times, it's about changing with the times. That's the era we are in with this business, and if it's about changing with the times, you have to really focus on creating stars, which what Charlotte could do, because her family's reputation pretty much has been solidified. We know about the Flair family legacy. The only one probably to prosper off that legacy always was and always will be Ric Flair. It'll never be Charlotte or David, because they really didn't have much success in the WWE or whatever company they worked for over the years. Charlotte's probably the only Flair sibling that was able to amount to anything in WWE, because we never did see David Flair or in WCW or WWE really amount to anything. But I think that with her family's legacy getting on track here again, being established, I think her purpose in this match pretty much is just to create a star out of someone like a Becky Lynch or a Sasha Banks. And one who I am really high on is Sasha Banks. That's why I've been writing about her so much from my written column in this corner with Jonathan Clarke, why I've been throwing up so many video blogs on Charlotte. Sometimes I am a fan of Charlotte, sometimes I'm not so much of a fan of Charlotte. If she would get away from modeling herself after her father, like so many people have tried to do in the Flair family, I would be more of a fan and supporter of Charlotte. When Charlotte first came into the business, and she wasn't so much patterning herself after her father, and her father wasn't coming up to the ring with her all the time, getting involved in her matches the way he has been for editions of Monday Night Raw Super Shows and pay-per-views, really factoring in to a storyline, because he seems to really want to be involved and has this desire to be involved in this program with Charlotte and whoever she's feuding with. You take Ric Flair out this equation and see how effective Charlotte is and how long she will last. I thought she was great when she first showed up, without her father always factoring into her matches and always being a bother in the side of everybody that Charlotte was feuding with. And I often wonder how people like Paige and even Becky Lynch feel about Ric Flair being involved in these storylines. WWE creative really need to second-guess themselves by having Flair getting involved in this as much as what he has been, because there's a 16-time world champion, and his role in WWE right now is assisting his daughter in retaining and keeping that Divas Championship month after month after month. Ever since last September, Charlotte's been on top. I was a fan of her without Ric Flair, not so much, because she seems to be becoming more like her father as the weeks go by. When you have talents like Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks who are very different, they are not modeling themselves after anybody. They don't have a family reputation or legacy to live up to or to be proud of. So I think that with them not having a family legacy or reputation to be proud of, they have more pressure, because nobody really knows who they are. We know them from NXT, and we know that Sasha Banks learned from one of the greatest of all time. We know she learned from Dusty Rhodes, who was the former NXT general manager, and she was his assistant. So obviously Dusty believed there was a lot of promise with Sasha Banks. Now off his passing, this could be a way of a tribute from Sasha Banks to Dusty Rhodes by becoming Divas Champion, because he knew that Sasha Banks was destined for greatness, and we as wrestling fans, from the chance that we want Sasha, know that she's destined for greatness. So if there ever was someone who was over in this feud with Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and obviously Becky Lynch also, it is someone like a Sasha Banks. And Charlotte obviously was over ever before the other two ever were, because of Ric Flair's influence on Triple H and Stephanie and the entire wrestling business. A two-time Hall of Famer, once by himself in the Four Horsemen, so with 2 Hall of Fame rings, more than anyone ever has been given in WWE's Hall of Fame since 1993, and the influence he's had on the business as managers of World Championship Wrestling, a general manager of WWE, 50% control, going to Ric Flair back in 2001, 2002 in the fallout of the Survivor Series. We all know what happened there when WCW lost out to WWE, how Ric Flair came in and was a business partner on Vince McMahon. So he had a lot of influence. So you pretty much knew that Charlotte was guaranteed at least one reign as Divas Champion. And a lot of people feel she's going to win more than one Divas Championship to kind of pattern herself even more after Ric Flair, which I hope to God doesn't happen. I hope we don't see her winning 6, 7 Divas Championships, breaking the record of Trish Stratus. If she's not the longest reigning Divas Champion in history, she'll probably go as far as to break the record of Trish Stratus, and I really hope that doesn't happen, because a lot of things took years for certain wrestlers and divas to solidify, and someone just shouldn't come in and break a record because they can break a record or because of the influence their families always had on the industry. So that's why I think this program between Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch should be used to create a new star. If it's not Charlotte, it should be somebody else. And right now, from the chance that we want Sasha being her loud, and clear. We obviously know who wrestling fans want to see as the Divas Champion, and it is Sasha Banks. Who would she feud with? Obviously Charlotte. In the fall of the WrestleMania would be the first one that would plead a case to getting a rematch for the championship because she would be entitled to a rematch, and probably Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch in a phenomenal program where Becky Lynch could be the heel character. And who's to say that Sasha Banks may not be the heel character? It seemed like to me Sasha Banks was always that heel character that was always over. She was a Stone Cold Steve Austin, so no matter if she's a fan favorite or a heel, fans are going to cheer for her because they like her personality and they are buying into this whole idea of Sasha Banks being the boss and being very supportive of her. She has millions of fans subscribed to her on Facebook, millions of followers on Twitter and Instagram. So with the response Sasha is receiving in terms of social media and her campaign, I mean, she is over. And these chants are getting louder because they want to be heard by WWE. And WWE obviously have heard the chants from wrestling fans. And that's why I say that wrestling fans are some of the smartest fans in the world, because you guys know what you want. And as long as you let WWE Creative know what you want, eventually they're going to have to give in, because you're the reason why the ratings are so low or high. You're the reason why people are or aren't buying tickets out of WWE. You're the reason why people are or are not subscribing to the networks, and you're the reason why people are buying the pay-per-views or are not choosing to opt out of buying pay-per-views. You guys are the reason WWE can exist. That's why they finally have the thank you promo after nearly 50 years, thanking wrestling fans for putting them in the position they are in. And I think that wrestling needs to be listening to its fans more, because if you guys were the general managers or the members of the creative team, I think more creative and more innovative concepts would be debuting and being thought of, and I think more people will be given opportunities. And I think it's an opportunistic time around this time every year, with WrestleMania getting closer and closer. Of course, this year it's in March or April. April 3rd is when it is. And the thing is, I think that, with this being an opportunistic time, this is where wrestling fans have the best chance ever to be heard louder than they ever have. And obviously they want Sasha Banks, want more of her. It's not that we aren't seeing Sasha Banks. That's not why fans are chanting this. They are chanting this because they want to see more of Sasha Banks and being given more of an opportunity than what she's been given. The NXT Women's Championship is one way. It's a catapult, and it's a way of becoming recognized because you get photo ops on WWE.com, a lot of video footage, and a lot of promotion. The thing is, yeah, that's one way, but an entirely different way to know that you've reached the pinnacle of your career is to be given that Divas Championship. Take, for instance, the reaction of AJ when she realization had set in that she had won her very first Divas Championship at Payback 2013, over 3 years ago, before announcing a retirement just years later because of her relationship with CM Punk and different circumstances that befell her in her life. The reaction of AJ was pure emotion, and you knew that AJ had realized she had reached her pinnacle, and that was the best thing in the world for her. That was the best feeling in the world. So can you imagine the feeling that someone like a Becky Lynch or a Sasha Banks is going to have when they realize they reached the pinnacle of their career? They established their legacy even further by winning a Divas Championship, going on to possibly in a second or a third. I mean, it's happened for some of the best, and only some of the best women in the business have won the championship multiple times in the way of Trish Stratus's, Brie Bella's, Nikki Bella's. They have done it all. And AJ was a 3-time Divas champion. So let's see another record established by someone who would go on to win more Divas championships in the fall of this program, or to go on to set more records. I mean, it's one thing to break a record, but to go on to set a record yourself is an entirely different way of looking at it. And I think if there ever were people who could set their own records, break records, it's obviously Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, or Charlotte. And I'm looking forward to finding out what all three of these ladies have in store for them in the way of the future, because I think these futures and these potentials of all three of these women have gone without recognition for far long enough. And it's time for more people to jump on the fan wagons of these three women and to get in on the conversation. So you can give me your thoughts in the comments of this video on my YouTube channel at Jonathan Clarke 22. You can give me a tweet on Twitter at Jonathan Clarke 1, and you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page or Google Plus at the same for both, HEW Entertainment. That's where the conversation is ongoing. And I want to know what your thoughts are, if you've got any, on this triple threat program we are looking at between Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch, which is going to be phenomenal. You have the Irish ass-kicker, Becky Lynch. You have the American diva, Charlotte, who patterns herself more and more as the weeks go by after her father. And you have someone like Sasha Banks, who is very, very different. She's not an original character in the way of patterning herself after her family's legacy and or reputation. She believes she's the boss, and this is her proving ground. This is the pinnacle for Sasha Banks to prove whether or not she belongs in WWE. A lot of people have different opinions when it comes to Sasha Banks, somewhat of a very diverse opinion coming from people about Sasha Banks, but I think she is really going to prove a lot of her critics wrong when she becomes Divas Champion. Who is my prediction in this three-way program? I'll go with Sasha Banks. I always was a fan of Sasha Banks. I never really admitted as much as I have of being a fan of other people as I have of being a fan of Sasha Banks, but here it is for you. Because I'm a fan of Sasha Banks, and only because I'm a fan of Sasha Banks, I will go as far as to say she is my prediction to win this program and emerge as Divas Champion, but only time will tell. Eric Bischoff said something really interesting in 2003. He said time was the most precious commodity and determines everything. And that's true, especially about the women's division, because time will factor in here and determine who is the best of the three and who has the most promising future as undoubtedly a future Divas Champion, and probably more than once. It's Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. And my prediction is Sasha Banks. Get in on the conversation and let me know what you think. And I will talk to you again next week. Until then, I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke. Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Oh. Whoa, it's time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. Right now I own the streets. I got the keys to the city. That's 'cause I get down. Time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. Right now I own the streets. I got the keys to the city. That's 'cause I get down. Sometimes I wonder how I made it this far. With all these people hating on me. Y'all know who you are. Take a chance and try to come up. And this game be in the store. Now I own the keys to a brand new fancy car, baby. It's my turn to burn, and now I'm here to rub it in your face. When will you learn? I'm the queen, and I'll put you in your place. It's time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. Right now I own the streets. I got the keys to the city. That's 'cause I get down. Time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. Right now I own the streets. I got the keys to the city. That's 'cause I get down.
How dare you try to go against the glorious hun? I slaughter you, son, it's over, the story is done. You could be number 2, but I'm second to none. But you forgot Queen B's the notorious one.
Baby, 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 I'm the creme de la creme, so you can never play me. See, I'm more than a lady, I'm more than a lover,